In this episode of Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags, I'll have a great interview with Liz Collin. She's from alphanews.org. Liz is a former television news anchor in Minneapolis. She watches very closely what's happening in Minnesota, and she's going to tell us what this fraud case is. Is it really $1 billion? Is Tim Walz the governor? Is he on the hook for any of this? And what the heck is going on in the city of Minneapolis? We know that ICE is going to be going in, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and finding people who are here illegally, those who committed other crimes on top of that, because the local police chief and the local mayor will not help ICE out. ICE has to go in and do operations. But yesterday, the Minneapolis police chief, this guy's name is Brian O'Hara, decided he would take to the microphone and to cameras, and he would say things to the Somali community, and I guess the community at large as well, that just don't make any sense. Now, keep in mind, going into this, we now know, and he knew this before he said it, that there would be about 100 federal agents going into Minneapolis to help get people out who should not be here. He responded this way.
Folks that are masked, that they're not sure if they're law enforcement, that they may be kidnapping people. Like, we have had those reports.
We've got the police chief of Minneapolis saying that people who are masked that are pretending or saying they're law enforcement might be kidnapping people off the street. Keep in mind, he knows federal agents are on the way. He knows they are actually law enforcement.
I want to be clear to the community. The community should know that if you see something like that, that is legitimate, that you don't know if someone is law enforcement, you should call 911.
Understand, he just said, and then Jacob Frey, who's the mayor, is behind him, says, that's right. He just told the people in Minneapolis, basically, if you see ICE agents in the city picking people up, doing their jobs, basically, you should call 911 on them because you're not really sure if they're law enforcement. It's what he just said. This guy gets paid to be the so-called top cop in Minneapolis.
And you should provide as much information as possible because let's not forget, we very recently had tragedy in this state by someone who was purporting to be law enforcement. So please, let's be clear.
It had nothing to do with ICE, with the federal government, or with immigration. This was a bad guy who went and killed a couple of state lawmakers because of politics. He pretended he was a law enforcement officer. This is apples and oranges big time, and he should be smart enough to know that.
That's something everyone should report and that we will immediately respond to and we will document, whether it's somebody's not sure if there's a kidnapping happening, somebody's not sure if there's law enforcement present or not. And that's something else that's additional policy requirements that we are implementing, that we will document and report these types of things anytime that we hear it, and reminding our officers of their duty to intervene. So if there is anything that is a violation of someone's human rights or civil rights, excessive force or anything like that, they absolutely have a duty to intervene as police officers.
Really? So you have a duty to intervene to stop federal law enforcement from doing their federal jobs. And then he goes from they could be kidnappers to no, they might be violating human rights or civil rights or using excessive force. He's literally saying his officers in his department, instead of helping ICE coming in and getting bad guys out of the city, no, his law enforcement should intervene. What does that even mean? Well, it doesn't stop there. Then Jacob Frey, who was behind him the whole time, steps up to the microphone and admits he knows that federal agents are on the way, but that we're going to be looking out for the community instead.
To respond to a number of credible reports from several media outlets relaying that there are as many as 100 federal agents that will be deployed to the Twin Cities with a specific focus on targeting our Somali community.
That's not true. They will be coming to the Twin Cities to get people who are here illegally and who are criminals, not to target somebody because they happen to be Somali. What he said is not true, and he should be smart enough to know that.
To our Somali community, we love you and we stand with you. That commitment is rock solid. Minneapolis is proud to be home to the largest Somali community in the entire country.
He might be, but the city of Minneapolis at large probably isn't, but okay.
They've been here for decades in many instances. They're entrepreneurs and fathers. They benefit both the culture and the economic resilience of our city. Targeting Somali people means that due process will be violated. Mistakes will be made. And let's be clear, it means that American citizens will be detained for no other reason than the fact that they look like they are Somali.
No, none of that's true. But you understand, Somalis are their fathers, they're the entrepreneurs, they help the economy. It's all good. Doesn't matter that there are illegal aliens here in this country that came from Somalia, and this guy is now going to aid, abet, and harbor them, just as the police chief will. Well, today, that was yesterday. Today, President Trump was asked about this very specific thing that Jacob Frey said when it comes to Minneapolis and Somalis.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country, and his police chief.
Well, then he's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also saying
I wouldn't be
that
proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look. These Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it because...
You know, people keep bringing this up. Did Ilhan Omar marry her brother to get him here as an immigrant? Did that really happen? You keep hearing people saying it on all the platforms. You see the president saying it here. Did it really happen? I will ask Liz Collin in just a moment when I interview. It's a good long interview. You're going to want to see this. She's got all the receipts. Did Ilhan Omar marry her brother to get him here? She'll answer that.
You know, it just happened. She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent. Waltz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with, go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. Without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now. So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon, I hope. But what Somalia, what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the governor. A lot of it starts with Barack Hussein Obama, because that's when people started coming in. And you have to have people come in that are going to love our country, cherish our country. They want to kiss our country goodnight. They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. This is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople because they don't represent the interests of our country.
The president not mincing any words when it comes to Ilhan Omar. Did she marry her brother, her legitimate brother, to have him come here as an immigrant? We're going to answer that question. I asked that very directly. We get a very direct answer from Liz Collin, who I'm going to interview right now on Unshaken and Unafraid with Joe Pags. You're not going to want to miss a second of this. All the questions you have about this so-called fraud in Minnesota, and a lot more will be answered. To that point, I always have to go with Liz Collin. She's an amazing journalist. She, of course, the senior reporter, Alpha News, alphanews.org. Go there and check her out. See at Liz Collin over on X. Liz, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Joe. How are you?
I'm living the dream. I think you guys are too Minnesota nice. Enough already. Stop being Minnesota nice. Be Minnesota mean. Be Minnesota. We love our city, our state, all of that. Because for some reason, radicals like Keith Ellison, who loves Antifa, who's a socialist, is the top cop. You got Tim Walz, who's a liar, who we know stole valor. I outlined that during the last election cycle. Now he's on the hook for a lot of alleged bad things happening in that state. Yesterday, as I told you before we started, I showed the police chief saying, call 911 on ICE, basically just saying that. I showed Jacob Frey, the Minneapolis mayor, saying they're going to be detaining and arresting American citizens because they look like they might be Somali. Liz, what the hell's going on in that state? I don't get it.
I have a few choice words, Joe, but I don't want you to lose your license there. The FCC might get you in trouble. But
Right.
I do have a little anger in me. But you're right, Minnesota making national news for all the wrong reasons on so many levels. I'm going to try to list it off here. So we have the U.S. Treasury Secretary right now talking about it's been a week for sure, investigating reports of fraud money pouring into terrorist groups in Somalia. A separate House oversight investigation into fraud. We have the Transportation Secretary recently coming out announcing it will pull $30 million in federal funding after finding 1/3 of commercial driver's licenses were issued to illegal immigrants here in Minnesota. The Department of Justice suing the state for access to our voter rolls currently. The Agriculture Secretary wants our SNAP data. Minnesota will not turn that over either. So we have multiple federal investigations ongoing at this point, Joe. New today, we've been talking about this fraud, which I know we're going to talk more about. A 2-year moratorium was just announced this morning, put on this program known as Home and Community-Based Services. It also appears to be ripe with fraud. It's a state-run program. It provides licenses to group homes. And the license applications, listen to this, grew by 283%.
Come on.
If that's even possible. So there are 2,500 current active licenses in Minnesota, 2,300 pending applications. So now the state has swooped in. All of a sudden, we have this national spotlight on fraud, and they're saying, "Hey, we're gonna go ahead and put a 2-year moratorium on this program." But that's just a tiny sliver of the story taking place here in Minnesota at the moment, Joe.
Stunning. It is Liz Collin. Go and follow alphanews.com, alphanews.org. I'm sorry. So let's get to the start. And I think the question that people around America, as they watch and listen, as they hear more stories coming out of Minnesota, the question has to be, why are there so many Somalians there? Who did that? Did Barack Obama do that? Did Tim Walz do that? Because Minnesota isn't climate-wise anything like Somalia. Somalia isn't at all culturally like the United States of America, not even a little bit. You've got the representative Ilhan Omar, who in Congress and in speeches has said, I'm in Congress to do the work of Somalians and Somalia. So Liz, let's just start from the start. Why are there so many people there from that country?
Well, we have many social programs in Minnesota, and that's what some state leaders have said. This is why we're a great place to be. We're a very welcoming community here in Minnesota, Lutheran Social Services, Catholic Charities, et cetera. But this has happened under several presidents dating back 80s, 90s. They say now the population is upwards of 100,000 Somalis in Minnesota. Even that is difficult to gauge at this point. But the largest, you're right, the largest population in the U.S. in Minnesota. There's a large concentration in Minneapolis, at Hennepin County in Minnesota, also St. Cloud, Minnesota, that area as well. And you have this fraud that's just exploded on the scene, dating back several years, actually. It's interesting that it's now in the national spotlight. I think the New York Times finally acknowledging this over the weekend certainly has helped that. But you have, let's call it it's the Feeding Our Future fraud. This is a $250 million fraud alone perpetuated in COVID, the largest COVID scheme in the country. That's $250 million alone. The 78th defendant in that case, Joe, was just finally sentenced last week, given 10 years in prison. Ordered to pay $46 million in restitution. I don't think anybody's planning on ever seeing that money, but I'm hearing from my sources, this is so pervasive that many people have decided, you know what, maybe it's worth 5-10 years in prison. Those are the sentences that we're seeing again and again. Right. And this money is poured overseas, and then they go ahead and they're released. And, it's the taxpayer in Minnesota that's obviously hurt in all of this.
Do we know that the $250 million left the country, left Minnesota? It wasn't to feed anybody in Minnesota? And is it all tied to Somalian immigrants?
I mean, primarily that case, absolutely. I think there were a couple people that were white in that case out of 78, but otherwise primarily Somalia. So the numbers, it's fair to say that millions poured overseas connected to that case. But what's happening, and it's a similar plan in every case, Joe, that these fake sites are basically, and I've checked these out myself. I can't even tell you the amount of tips we've received at Alpha News with just these fake businesses that have popped up, whether it's autism centers, whether it's as adult daycares, which nobody's ever even heard of an adult daycare before.
Right.
But all of a sudden, they seem to be spread out statewide. But these particularly were fake meal sites, and then they're billing the federal government, or in some cases the state, for serving meals that are not going to anyone, or providing services that are not going to anyone. And it's really disturbing to see. I can't tell you just again how many businesses we've seen for ourselves. It's in fact so bad, Joe, that we just recently did a story over at Alpha News that you had neighboring businesses set up security cameras of their own to say that nobody's going in and out of this building. There are no kids at this place, and we found that this particular autism center was getting $2 million from the state.
Wow.
And when after reviewing these surveillance videos, you never see kids going in and out at all.
I've heard the number $1 billion. Is there $1 billion in fraud that's being investigated or has been found out to have happened? Because you say 78 defendants and people keep on getting sentenced, so clearly people are being found guilty. Do we know it's $1 billion in fraud? Is it that much?
Joe, it's actually more. The acting U.S. attorney who is serving in that role held many press conferences not that long ago to really try to push this out there as they were going ahead and charging people related to Feeding Our Future and other frauds as well, a housing program that had to be just shut down. But he has said that it's multi-billion dollars, $2-3 billion. And he actually thought that was on the conservative side of things, if you can imagine. And they've said that I think it's 5 prosecutors that they have in that office on the federal level, that they can't prosecute themselves out of this problem. So you have state employees that have come forward and actually have for years, which also was a big story that we saw this weekend. They have their own X account. They've been blowing the whistle on this account since October of 2022.
Oh, wow.
And they solely placed the blame on Governor Walz this weekend in a post that went viral saying that they've gone to the governor and they have been met with silence by their concerns. But this account is tied to more than 400 state employees that make up the Department of Human Services, DHS, which is one of the state's largest employers.
Liz Collin, senior reporter, Alpha News. Go to alphanews.org. What's the name of the movie again? I watched it. Is it The Burning of Minneapolis? What is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of things it could be. It's The Fall of Minneapolis. So if you head to the fallofminneapolis.com, you can see it there and check it out. But again, these are tied. It's all tied to the same people. Governor Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison. We've been trying to sound the alarm in Minnesota for some time, Joe. So certainly appreciate you shining the light here.
What's likely to happen is yesterday, Kristi Noem said something to the effect of Tim Walz is either an idiot or he's extremely incompetent or he's both. In your reporting, are his fingerprints all over all of this, or could he plausibly say, I had no idea?
I thought before there may be a little wiggle room, but now we're hearing people come forward to say that we tried to go to him. We tried to meet with him. We gave him this evidence. And, he doesn't want to hear it. So I do hope that somebody on the federal level will go ahead and take a look at this. What did he know? Because I don't think that was quite as clear as it is now. And it's interesting now that he's running for his 3rd term here in Minnesota. He's announced that he is running. But why now? Why is there this active interest? This guy could have been our vice president, Joe.
Yeah.
But all of these stories have been there for quite some time.
Yeah, and you helped to shed the light on this stuff. And again, I had people on that were talking about his service and his lies and the really bad way that he's been running that state. But if he's also somebody whose hands are dirty, potentially, but all this fraud stuff, I mean, it's just, to me, the arrogance of the people on the left in this country, not just in Minnesota, that they can do anything, say anything, get away with it, and still almost win elections. It blows my mind. I mean, you can bring up the guy Jay Jones in Virginia. That's going to be the top cop there, that literally said he'd like to put 2 bullets in the head of his competitor, who was the Speaker of the House at the time. I don't know what that is. Why do the people of Minnesota, do you think, this is purely opinion, and maybe you don't want to answer, but why do the people of Minnesota keep on putting up with it? They are really good people in Minnesota. Geographically speaking, it is a red state. I know that the Twin Cities dominates the elections. I get that. But why isn't every conservative or Republican or concerned Minnesotan not going to the polls? It should be 100% turnout to stop this garbage from happening to a great state.
It's partly why I left mainstream media, Joe, because our media, I think, is among the worst in the country. They're not doing a good job informing the public. In fact, the Star Tribune, Minnesota's largest newspaper, is operated by a former Walz commissioner
There you go.
So there's quite a few connections, and you also have these reporters. I mean, they really believe all of this. They're basically just working for the DFL at this point, and that's been the case for years. And that's why I left. It's been 4 years now, but I put out a book, They're Lying: The Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd, because I really saw this firsthand. So in many ways, sometimes you can't even blame the Minnesota population, because sometimes they don't have this information. And that's what we try to do over at Alpha News, to give you really the full story, what you don't know about so many of these people with so much power in Minnesota.
Get the information, alphanews.org. Get it from Liz Collin and the great folks there. Go follow Liz as well over on X. Yesterday I mentioned this, but I think the quote was, our Somali community is not just a part of Minneapolis. They are Minneapolis, said Mayor Jacob Frey, the guy who, of course, bent his knee to BLM. He, of course, allowed the 3rd Precinct to be burned down by rioters just because they could. He's also now offering free legal clinics or services to Somalians in Minneapolis. Liz, this would be so easy if the police chief and the mayor said, ICE, tell us who the bad guys are that you want to come and get. We'll help you. We'll get them out of here, and the rest of the people who are from Somalia that live here won't be harmed. The reason why ICE has to do it this way is because of this guy saying what he said, and because of the police chief. So what do you make of that? What are the people in Minneapolis who are sick of it, what are they saying when they hear this guy stand in front of a microphone and a camera and say, those people aren't Minneapolis, the Somalians are Minneapolis?
Yeah, that memo that came out yesterday from the mayor, and I know you highlighted as well some of those comments at the press conference. I've heard from many people that live in Minneapolis that in fact does not represent their line of thinking, and they are beyond frustrated. But you had the mayor win re-election there, but he beat out a Democratic socialist running against him, who is a state senator as well. But it is interesting to watch all of this play out, and this really has been sort of building, I think, for years here. ICE, I should just back up a little bit. Attorney General Keith Ellison has basically said to all law enforcement agencies in Minnesota, you cannot cooperate with ICE. So this was before all of this. And so now you have just 7 counties out of 87 in Minnesota that have said, we're doing these programs that ICE is offering now, and we will cooperate. And I've been on ride-alongs with ICE, actually one just recently in Minnesota, and they've talked about that. So they've created just this terrible situation now that this has spilled out into the streets, creating a very unsafe environment for everyone involved, not just ICE agents, but the community as well. And they're met with these activist groups rather than just picking these people up, or if they are responsible for a crime, they're in the jail, and then they would call ICE like they do in other places or around the country.
Right, come and get them.
And then they can just come and pick them up. But that's not happening here. Instead, we have this chaos and these fears that are stoked, and these so-called leaders of Minneapolis that seem to be siding with people who are here illegally.
It doesn't make any sense. It's harrowing, and I wish that 100% would show up and vote these asses out. It doesn't make any sense why they keep on allowing people like this to run their state. I've got to ask you something off the beaten path a little bit, but I know that you'll tell me the truth. I'm tired of the innuendo. I'm tired of people saying it and they're not backing it up. It appears to be true. Did Ilhan Omar literally marry her brother to help him immigrate to this country? Did that happen or not? Because I'm tired of people saying it, and then you don't have any real verification that it happened. Is that true?
Yeah, actually, I encourage people to check out at Liz Collin. I tweeted out this weekend because this reporting now dates back to 2019 that there is strong evidence. There's certainly a lot more evidence to show that she did than did not. In fact, I've yet to really see any evidence to point to that she did not. But tax issues with Ilhan Omar, perjury, this all dates back years. And there was a 3-part series done by Alpha News back in 2019. And I tried to put that out there again this weekend because the documentation is certainly there. So I think that's why many Minnesota taxpayers here are welcoming these eyes from the federal government. And I think that they are hopeful, perhaps that something finally will be done, because it seems like there's plenty to find here, and we'd be happy to point them in the right direction. That's for sure, Joe.
And here's a person who, again, she alleged that she never knew the guy before they got married. Yep. It was not part of the family. Then Facebook photos showed up that they were certainly, this is my brother, and this is part of my family. And as you said, there seems to be an abundance of evidence to suggest it did happen. And there's only her saying it, that it didn't happen. Other than that, there's no evidence. So why do you think nobody's taken any action? I mean, you should be kicked out of Congress for that. Maybe you should lose your naturalized citizenship. I don't know. I mean, what are they afraid of with this woman?
Yeah, actually, we've been lodging some questions to the new U.S. attorney in Minnesota to ask, are you taking a look at that, denaturalization process for
Right.
the Congresswoman? And we've yet to receive a response at this point. We have heard, and just doing the research, it looks like the statute of limitations has expired on the marriage situation, but there are still, different avenues to explore at this point. But I'll be honest, it does seem like there's quite a few people that seem to be untouchable, and she would be certainly at the top of that list in Minnesota.
Wow. Yeah, this Liz Collin, go and follow alphanews.org. Go follow Alpha News and Liz over on X. Let me finish with this. Do we know factually that Walz or the state of Minnesota funneled money to Al-Shabaab? Do we know that happened?
Well, we know that money went overseas, that it was obtained fraudulently. And I think that is the question. But, you have to even remember, Somalia, it is run by terrorist groups.
Yes.
So I don't think that I don't think it's much of a stretch to say, backing up what that law enforcement source told City Journal in that story, that the largest funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota taxpayer. That I know that's really breathtaking to hear, but not surprising if you've been covering this for years, like we have. And we also have became after 9/11, a lot of this came forward about just being a top recruiting area for terrorist groups. We've done many stories about that over the years, young men trying to join ISIS, Al-Shabaab. Those stories also date back quite a bit over at Alpha News.
Well, we're saying that it went overseas, and I can appreciate that. Do we know that it landed in what would be called Somalia? Like the president yesterday said, Somalia is not really a country. It's not run like a country. Like you said, it's run by terrorist organizations. There's no real hierarchy there other than whoever has the biggest guns and the most weapons or something. But do we know that money left Minnesota and landed there in that place?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, you have basically, it's documented in the criminal complaints tied to this Feeding Our Future. Again, 78 people charged in that scheme that they were buying property in Somalia, Kenya. Wow. A hotel, I believe, is mentioned, and not only property in Minnesota, elsewhere, but yes, they were buying real estate. So absolutely, money was definitely being funneled in that direction.
And Tim Walz is running for re-election. And Keith Ellison is still your top cop. And Jacob Frey says Somalians.
He's running for re-election.
Oh, is Keith Ellison running for re-election too?
Yep, they both are. Mm-hmm. 2026 will be a critical year.
Are people not sick of Keith Ellison with his Antifa pamphlet in that picture, and I guess his son either was or is on the Minneapolis board? Are they not sick of that family knowing that crime is not getting better, it's getting worse? That he would like to see rape victims call a social worker and not call a cop if the rapist got away? I mean, are people of Minnesota really okay with that?
I would say absolutely the answer is no, that they are not. And I think that all roads also federally lead to these voter rolls. I think if there's one area that really needs to be looked at, sure, there's a lot of them, but that should be at the top of the list. Because again, I'm a lifelong Minnesotan, born and raised here, and I just know that I don't know how these people are being elected. They don't represent the vast majority of people in this state, and for the most part, many of these people are outsiders, selected, if you will, for these positions. So I think that's where really the most questions need to be answered. And again, if you have nothing to hide, why not turn over all that information? I believe that in journalism as well, transparency, right? And that is not happening when it comes to our voting system. And we've had some radical changes in laws related to our voting, Joe, under Governor Walz as well. And I think that needs to be examined too.
Liz Collin, senior reporter, Alpha News. Go to alphanews.org. Let me finish with that on the same topic. I know that there was an undercover investigation done, and I don't remember if it was James O'Keefe. I don't remember if it was Laura Loomer. Somebody went to Minneapolis, and they studied it, and they're suggesting there's a scheme to have people fill out mail-in ballots that have no right filling out anything, maybe dogs' names. Everybody's collecting all the ballots. They're filling them out. That was alleged by that report. So without getting into that, because you and I don't have the information in front of us, you might. I don't have it in front of me. Let me just ask you very simply. Doesn't the federal government have the right to say, let me see your voter rolls? How can they resist? And how do you think that's gonna shake out in the end? Don't they have to give them up? Do you think they're cleaning them up right now before they give them over?
All good questions, Joe. But yeah, most states did. They handed them over right away when the Department of Justice asked for them. Minnesota is among the few that is fighting it by the sound of things. But the Department of Justice has now taken this to court, suing the state for access. But there are questions, have they fraudulently registered illegal aliens to
Right.
vote in Minnesota? What do those roles really look like? But again, if there's nothing to hide, exactly, why not? Why not just hand them over?
A question that's tied to that. Do you have any idea the percentage of those who are here from Somalia that are now citizens and that can vote? Is it a high percentage? Is it a low percentage?
That's what's interesting about that population. You had President Trump announce that he was terminating the temporary protected status
Right.
of Somalis in Minnesota, and I believe that only pertained to 400 people in the state. And if you look just back over the years, it doesn't appear that the population has changed that much, between 80 and 100,000. So also there are questions of how are they tracking this population, because they are known for having multiple children. I mean, certainly any population is growing. You usually see that in census reports. But I would say, overwhelmingly, they are here legally. And I know that there was a lot to be made of that TPS status. But yeah, in the end, it is just a few hundred people. But obviously, this is what Trump ran on, and he's fulfilling his promise of ridding the country of people who are here illegally.
Well, I'm asking the question about citizenship, not legality, because citizens can vote in general elections. That's what I'm wondering. Because I get the assertion, I get the feeling that a lot of people might be voting in Minnesota that aren't allowed to vote. So my question is simple. Of the 80 to 100,000 Somalis who are in Minneapolis and in Minnesota at large, do we know what the percentage is that are citizens that can vote in general elections?
Yeah, I guess I don't want to speculate on that, but again, most of these people have been here for decades, so I
Gotcha.
imagine they are here legally. And I will say that I am familiar with that report on, and we've done some of our same reporting as well as James O'Keefe, and this was basically Somalis opening up on camera saying that they are paid a couple $100,
Right.
For each ballot. And this was openly admitted in undercover recordings that we reported on as well.
Listen, there's a lot going on there, and I always go straight to you. I tell my crew, get Liz on the phone, get her on the line, let's get her on the show, because you really know what's going on. And people around the country are seeing what's happening in Minnesota, and they're noticing enclaves in other states. They're noticing areas in other places where a very different community, a very different culture shows up, starts changing the entirety of the state, and that doesn't lead to good things for Western civilization. So your eyes on this and your reporting on this have been top-notch, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming back on today. Go and follow Liz Collin over on X. Go follow Alpha News as well. Go to alphanews.org. Liz, thanks a million. Really appreciate you.
I'll appreciate you right back, Joe. Thank you so much.
It's always great. We're back after this. Stay right here.